So good evening to everyone. It's an honor to be here. I especially want to recognize the Center for Christian Virtue, who's been an incredible partner in the fight against predatory gambling since I've been involved with this fight, especially Aaron, David, Ryan, the rest of their team. They do a fabulous job. They participate in our National Tuesday calls, and I'm just very grateful for the leadership you guys continue to show in this as a state chapter on this. And it's very fitting that this is indeed the first topic that breaks in this building, because predatory gambling, the institution of predatory gambling, is Ohio's most neglected major problem, and it's America's most neglected major problem. And so tonight I've titled my talk, as you can see, Why Leaders of Ohio Must Stop Looking Away from the Cruel, Oppressive, and Fixed Institution of Predatory Gambling. So I'm going to he read our mission statement, so I'm going to skip this next slide. People always ask, Les, why are you so passionate on this issue? You know, why have you spent the prime years of your life in the fight against the institution of predatory gambling? And the way I describe it to people, this is not about whether or not people gamble, what people do privately. And frankly, I really don't care what people do privately when it comes to the issue of gambling. What I care about is what the role of our government in our society. That's what I care about. Whether you're from the right or the left, we're the most diverse movement in the country, because we attract people of all political stripes, and this is an issue that unites people. And the reason for that is, growing up, you're in elementary school, middle school, one of the first democratic principles you learn about is the principle of no taxation without representation. Right? Especially growing up in the Boston area, the whole concept of no taxation without representation. It's part of our DNA as a people. Okay, it's one of our most cherished democratic principles. Today in America, whether it's Ohio or any other state, we have a system of taxation by exploitation. And you're going to see some numbers here that are jaw-dropping to you. When we say taxation by exploitation, there is no other way to describe it. And so this is, to me, if you ask what's broken about America today, this is Exhibit A, because this system of taxation by exploitation, commercialized gambling, advertising, and marketing is what we advertise to the American people more than anything else. And what we incentivize to the American people, it shapes our national character in very profound ways. So this is Exhibit A. You want to change the direction of our country? If you're not satisfied with where we're going as a nation, like, this is your issue. This is your issue. And a lot of folks will talk about, hey, we talk to left-leaning audiences and right-leaning audiences, and depending on the audience, some people say, it's those Hollywood values. That's what's destroying our country, taking us in the wrong direction. It's the left driving us with these crazy policies. And if I'm in a left-leaning audience, they're blaming all the kind of right-leaning things. But here I'm going to talk about a concept where I refer to as Las Vegas values have become the new trend-setting touchstone for America. Not Hollywood values, okay? It's Las Vegas values have come to define our country in very profound ways. And I deliberately found, this is actually a real casino in Las Vegas called the Main Street, but literally, we have put Las Vegas on Main Street here in Ohio and across our country. And now, with online gambling, not only have we put it on Main Street, we've put a Las Vegas casino on every device that has an internet connection in a community, in every bedroom, every home, every dorm room in our country. That's Las Vegas values have permeated American culture. So I'd like to touch on what is predatory gambling, okay? And when I do that, I like to start with what predatory gambling is not, okay? Predatory gambling is not the Friday night poker game. It's not buying a square in the Super Bowl office pool. It's not buying a team in your March Madness bracket. It's not. I'm Catholic. Growing up, local Catholic church used to have Catholic church bingo nights. It's not Catholic church bingo, and it's not a friendly wager on the golf course with friends. Those are all social forms of gambling. There's no house involved in that. Okay, that's already legal. Sports gambling was already legal in Ohio before the state legalized it. It was illegal to be the house. Okay? Because here's what predatory gambling is. Okay? Predatory gambling is when powerful corporate gambling interests partner with state governments, like here in Ohio, to use commercialized gambling to exploit and defraud citizens and their communities. When you run gambling as a business, it creates a predatory and adversarial relationship between the gambling operator and the gambler. Okay? They're trying to take you down. If I go out to supper, that restaurant chef, he's not trying to destroy me. He's not trying to take me all for I'm worth. If I go to a Columbus Blue Jackets hockey game, they're not trying to destroy me. Like, they might be giving me an entertainment time, but they're not trying to take me down. There's not an adversarial relationship with that business. And this is a scheme where there's an adversarial relationship when you do gambling as a business. So what does the institution of predatory gambling include? It includes state lotteries, regional casinos, commercialized sports gambling, internet casino gambling, which we heard someone use the term iGaming. iGaming is a euphemism. It's internet casino gambling. That's what we're talking about. And we need to use that terminology when we talk about this issue. And it includes now prediction markets. Okay, so we've all seen these in our life. If you have young kids today, if you have guys in their 20s in your life, they're on these apps. Okay, you're the exception in our society today if you're under 30 and you're not involved with online gambling in some way, whether it's video games or these online gambling apps. So I'm going to share a couple truths about this issue in terms as it relates to the institution of predatory gambling. Is a lot of people say we focus on the public health aspect to gambling, which is real, and I'm not minimizing that. Commercialized gambling is highly addictive, but that's not why it's illegal. It's illegal because it's a con. It's a form of consumer financial fraud in the family of price gouging and false advertising. That's why the state of Ohio in its constitution has it illegal to run a gambling business unless you partner with the state. Not because it's highly addictive, even though it is as addictive as cocaine and opioids and so on, according to the American Psychiatric Association. It's illegal because it's a con. It's a form of consumer financial fraud. And so that's why it's illegal. So you have a government program that is openly ripping off the folks of your state. So when we talk about here, in the big picture, I use the term, it's the big con. Predatory gambling is the big con. So it's taking a known dangerous and addictive product like opioids, OxyContin, tobacco products, taking a highly addictive product, a known highly addictive product, and then merging it, combining it with a manipulative and deceptive financial scheme. Like the guy from FTX, the cryptocurrency scheme, the infamous Bernie Madoff. These are cons. These are financial ripoffs. So you're taking a highly addictive product and merging it with a financial scheme, a ripoff financial scheme for your constituents. And so what does that mean? So show me the numbers, Les, right? Why isn't commercialized gambling like any other business? Why aren't they like Starbucks? Why aren't they like going to the movies or going out to dinner or any other business that Ohio is involved with, the state of Ohio, that operates here in the state of Ohio? This is the best graph I've ever seen. It's the simplest explanation of how the math works in the gambling business. This is taken from Addiction by Design, which still today, 15 years later, is still the best book written about the technology behind commercialized gambling. Okay, it was written by Natasha Schull, who was once at MIT and now is at NYU. She's on 60 Minutes and so on. But this is the graph. So on the left side, you start out with a whole bunch of money, and the longer you participate in it, it's a mathematical certainty you're going to lose the longer you participate. You start out with a whole bunch of time. You start out with a certain amount of cash. The more spins you do in a gambling machine or any type of gambling, it's inevitable. Not only are you going to lose money, but you're going to go deep into debt. That's what the house always wins means. We kind of joke about it today. The house always wins. We put this, like we all joke about it. What that really means, it's a con. It's a form of financial fraud. So if you put the con in Las Vegas and you got to hop on a plane to go out there once or twice a year, it doesn't change your life. But you put the con on Main Street here in Ohio, you put the con on your kid's smartphone, on your college student's smartphone, or you put it selling $50 scratch-off tickets on every low-income neighborhood in your state. It's life-altering. It's life-changing. Okay, that's a difference. So have a Vegas in America, but should Vegas be on every internet connection in a state? Should it be on Main Street in America? And to me, the answer definitively is no. And doing it as a government program. So the second truth is There's a fundamental and irreconcilable conflict of interest that exists between the interests of the state, so-called regulating commercialized gambling. We hear that all the time by gambling lobbyists when they come into your office. Legalize this, and we'll regulate this. If the gambling industry was here today, they say, Les, we're the most regulated industry in America. When they say they're regulated, they're not regulated to protect your family. They're not regulating to protect your constituents. The state is regulating this to make sure it gets its fair cut of the profits. Okay? That's what we're talking about. What's what regulation means. So the business practices that bring in the most money for the state are the same business practices that unleash the most harm to the American people. So there isn't another state public policy that inflicts more financial harm, more mental health harm, and more social harm to the citizens of this country than the institution of predatory gambling. Nothing else even comes close. And it's the public voice of our government. So let's take a quick look at what the institution of predatory gambling looks like here in Ohio, what regulated gambling looks like in Ohio. On the left side here, okay, hopefully you can see this. This is a $50 scratch-off ticket, okay? It's a $50 scratch-off ticket sold in low-income neighborhoods across your state. And it's marketed as win $1 million a year for life. This is exempt from truth in advertising regulations under the Federal Trade Commission. Okay, the rest of your businesses in your district, they all have to abide by the Federal Trade Commission truth in advertising regulations. Commercialized gambling does not, because the FTC leaves it up to states to regulate it. Okay, so you have state government pushing $50 scratch-off tickets, marketed as here's the best way to save get $1 million in your life. It's not by slowly saving money week after week and investing it in an S&P 500 index fund week after week, getting wealth slowly. That's how we used to expand the middle class in America. Now it's, hey, go out and buy a $50 scratch-off ticket as a government program. What else does it look like? On upper right, that's called Nobody is Luckier. These are cartoon-like figures. That's a $2 scratch-off ticket, okay, with cartoon-like figures in the theme of St. Patrick's Day. They put cartoon figures on a scratch-off ticket. At a $2 price point. Who do you think who is state government appealing with that imagery? Not me, the 56-year-old guy. They're targeting kids with that. Okay, and I'm old enough to remember that one of the iconic images of the tobacco industry was when every state attorney general sued them, including the state AG in Ohio, for using Joe Camel to lure kids to smoke. Here you have a government program putting gnomes, cartoon-like figures on scratch-off tickets. They have Santa Claus on scratch-off tickets, Frosty the Snowman on scratch-off tickets. And everyone shields their eyes. We all look away from what's happening. Who do you think the demographic is for those ads? It's kids, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews. That's what we're talking about. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is something we'll hand to you as a PDF later because it's too long to go through. I could do a whole presentation on this. But this is a contrast that we did. One of my colleagues, Autumn Stroop, put this together. She led the effort. And we contrasted how states go after other addictive industries, okay, versus the gambling industry. And it's jaw-dropping. How pharmaceutical companies are treated, how we treat alcohol, how we treat tobacco. All of them are completely different than how we treat the gambling industry. The gambling industry has a free pass here in Ohio and across our country. That's the reality. That's the truth about this issue. And I'll send my whole presentation in this PDF with you when we're done. Okay, the last truth I'm going to touch on here, and this is maybe one that drives me the most on this. Most of you may be familiar with Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey, big personal finance guy. I got my kids doing it. I hand out to people, anyone who works with us, we buy them a subscription to help them learn, good personal finance. But truth number 3 is a major reason why so many families in Ohio and in America don't experience financial peace, which is a big Dave Ramsey term, is because of the extreme forms of commercialized gambling that state governments like Ohio promote to its citizens. That's the reality of this. We talk about expanding the middle class. Where do you see these numbers that are going to come from here? So for the last several years, we've heard all these, Ohio needs to become more affordable for low-income and middle-income families, right? And this is just one example. This is a big story about the rising price of eggs and how it's affecting family budgets in Ohio, okay? Sorry about that. Okay, that's an image, right from Fox News, a whole bunch of countless stories about affordability in Ohio. Well, how much are families in Ohio affected by predatory gambling, by the institution of predatory gambling? What's its financial impact? All right. So, and I double-checked these numbers because they were so jaw-dropping. These are the worst numbers I've seen in any state that I've done this. So, this is like the worst I've seen. It's unbelievable. So, Ohio citizens over the next 5 years, without expanding any new forms of gambling, are in a downward spiral to lose $25 billion of their personal wealth to commercialized gambling sponsored by the Ohio state government over the next 5 years. $25 billion of lost wealth over the next 5 years. Just in the last year alone, your constituents, okay, lost $4,886 million of personal wealth to the Ohio lottery, to the state's casinos and racinos, and commercialized sports gambling combined. Okay, that's almost $5 billion in 1 year. Let's put that in real numbers. I'm going to talk for 15 minutes, okay? That's $9,096 every minute that your constituents are losing to a government program. Think about that. Like, I'm going to talk for 15 minutes. That's $150 grand that your constituents are going to lose. And we talk about how we're going to expand the middle class in Ohio and across our country. We're doing all these tariffs and stuff to bring wealth back to America. If you just cut that by half, by 50% over the next 5 years, there's no public policy from either party that would put more money back into the daily lives of the American people than that. Get rid of the $50 scratch-off tickets and all these other extreme forms of gambling. So there's our chart. I won't get into the numbers here. This is the breakdown from the lottery, casinos, and video lottery terminals, everything else. Almost $5 billion in 1 year. $25 billion over the next 5 years. And then lastly, part of the reason why we have this, the other impact this has on everyday families in Ohio is we talk about, hey, well, these are jobs less, right? People are working at these casinos in your state. So I'm going to start here with Pennsylvania on purpose just to contrast it with Ohio. And say like Pennsylvania, they got 15,000 people, according to this Pennsylvania Gambling Control Board, who work at the state's casinos, including part-time jobs, 15,000 folks. Yet the state has received 30,000 voluntary requests from citizens to ban themselves from the casino. Okay, 30,000 people have voluntarily applied to ban themselves. The people who come forward to ban themselves, that's literally the tip of the iceberg. That's called self-exclusion. Roughly 10% of the citizens affected by gambling come forward for any kind of help. Okay, so that means 90% of the citizens who are addicted never come forward for help. So this 30,000 number is just the tip of the iceberg. And say like Pennsylvania, you've almost doubled the amount of people who are self-excluded than the people who work at these casinos. So I try to get numbers for here in Ohio, right? Because Ohio must have these same type of numbers. We've been doing this all over the country, contrasting self-exclusion rates with job numbers. So your leadership here in Ohio is getting ahead of the curve, and they don't publish these numbers. Okay, so on Ohio, the annual website now for the annual report for the Ohio Gambling Control Commission and on its website, they don't publish hard numbers anymore, the amount of citizens who are self-excluded. They do it by percentage. How many people are percentages? Cayuga County, Franklin County. Like, that's not by accident. Why are they publishing percentages? Because they don't want you to know. They don't want the people of the state to know. Which I just thought, I've never seen a state do that, frankly. I was stunned to see those numbers, okay? All right? Actually, I was ahead of myself. Those are the numbers there. They're public percentages, right from their own gambling commission study. So what are the numbers for the Ohio Voluntary Exclusion Program? All right, in Pennsylvania, we know more than 30,000 folks. Ohio now, we digged everywhere for this. They haven't published numbers in almost 2 years. April 5th, 2024, okay? April 5th, 2024 was the last time they published numbers, and it was 8,440 citizens, okay, that have done it, that have put forward. That seems really small, frankly, but that's the number they had. So we'll go with it. So how many people work at the state's casinos in Ohio? Okay. We tried to dig that number. How many casino jobs are there, including casino jobs and racinos in Ohio? Again, We don't publish that anymore on the website for the Ohio Gambling Commission. They don't put it in the annual reports. Every other state, pretty much, I've seen, puts the amount of jobs, casino jobs, in their annual report. Not here in Ohio. What they do is they have a number of casino licenses that they grant, which is not the same thing as casino jobs. Anyways, so when was the last numbers, the published numbers we could find? Were from 2014, so 11 and a half years ago, published in the Cincinnati Enquirer. Okay, it showed that if you add up casino jobs and casino jobs, it was 9,214 part-time and full-time jobs worked at the state's casinos. You almost have roughly 9,000 citizens who are on your state's self-exclusion list, okay, which is just the tip of the iceberg. So we collectively need to stop looking away from this institution. You want to change society for the better and make meaningful reforms and for all citizens who you represent, this is your issue. So thanks for letting me the opportunity to be here today, and hopefully we'll have a chance to work together going forward. Thank you very much.